Good evening, everyone. Glad to have you all here on a wonderful Monday for the 4th episode of the Monday edition for Onward to Victory. My name is Jordan Talley, and as always, I'm joined by
Ella Wolter-Sánchez
and Noah Reed.
We are back from our fall break for episode number 6, and we have a lot to chat about today. But before we get into that, I know we have all been following a plethora of ASU sports all season, whether it's for this or other clubs. So I'd like to ask, what team are you most excited to see the outcome for this season?
You know what? I went to my first volleyball game this past weekend on Friday. They took on Colorado. I've been meaning to get out there. They played at Mullet, which was really cool. That was my first time at Mullet and seeing the all-purpose arena. So that in itself was really cool. But they took Colorado 3 sets. The coaches poll just came out this week. They're 13th on the board. I'm really, really excited to see if they can make a deep postseason run. And you never know what can happen. These tournaments, they're crazy, they're chaotic. But I liked what I saw. The team did really good. And it was a fun atmosphere. There was a ton of people.
I hate to say it, but I would love to see how this football season turns out. I mean, I know we all are, especially with how good we've been doing and then our sort of hiccup we had this past week. So I'm very excited to see if ASU can pull through and show up in the Big 12 conference.
Yeah. Football is a great poll as how they've been doing compared to recent seasons. But I'm very excited about volleyball as well. I think they are genuinely a great team, especially they're on I think I just looked it up, a 6 or 7 win streak right now. They've been sweeping their opponents. They're a very strong team, I believe, in every aspect, and I would love to see them on a deep playoff run or postseason.
And throw one more bone at them. They're playing GCU tonight, so a little battle of the valley here. So that should be a good one, good crowd.
As well as in Mullet, I think. And Mullet's just a great atmosphere for sports in general. All right, we have a lot to talk about this week. Mainly, our first ASU team is our ASU football and how they've experienced their highs versus Utah and lows versus a surprisingly, at least for me, strong Cincinnati team. These past 2 weeks, they've had their record. They've improved it to 5-1. 5-1, and now 5-2, coming off their loss to the Cincinnati Bearcats. They are now 2-2 in the conference. So after our brief break with the show, Sun Devil has had a pretty awesome high followed by a low at Cincinnati. ASU football defeated the ranked number 16 Utah Utes in an upset in the form of a 27-19 win. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to that game. I don't know, did any of you guys?
I also wasn't able to make it to that game.
Oh, man, you guys
missed out.
Game I don't go to, I see everybody on social media on the field, and I was so upset.
Me too.
It was incredible. I mean, it was a little strange because we went from, on one hand, having that huge 102% crowd for Kansas to, it felt a little empty. It felt like there was more people gone.
Interesting.
But the energy was still absolutely insane. I think the one takeaway for me as far as just atmosphere-wise was with about 5 minutes to go when we knew things were kind of going in ASU's favor, the student section moved forward, and you could tell they were gearing up. And I think the funniest thing to me was up on the big screen, they put, "Do not enter the field at any time under any circumstance." And then the student section starts chanting, "You can't stop us." And that was just, awesome. To be there, to add that experience was unlike anything else.
I was so upset because that is the one game that I have missed here. Because I was at the Michigan hockey game, and I had all my equipment and everything. I couldn't bring stuff. But it was I was sitting in my bed here downtown watching the whole student section storm the field. I'm like, wow, like you said, the one game I don't go to.
It was very upsetting. I also saw videos of security guards filming everybody coming down, and it was so funny. And I've always maybe not, I won't advertise that. But my mom went to ASU in the 90s when they would she took down the goalpost twice when they went to the Rose Bowl. And so that's always been a story I've heard. And it's oh my gosh, they went on the field. I feel like you don't really hear about that in college as much, especially here, since it hasn't been a very exciting football atmosphere. But that was very funny to watch on social media.
Yeah, so just some stats for you here. Of course, we can't talk about ASU football without talking about Sam Levitt and Cam Scadaboo. They're the household names this season. Cam Scadaboo rushed for 158 yards and 22 carries while holding a couple of touchdowns. Sam Levitt had 11 out of 18 completions for 154 yards in the air and 1 touchdown. And this name is coming up a lot more lately for our the ASU defense. Caleb McCullough recorded 12 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 1.5 tackles for a loss. Cam Scadaboo and Caleb McCullough were named the Big 12 Offensive and Defensive Players of the Week, respectively. But unfortunately, Sam Levitt did go down in this game for a snap or two. He did return, but he was unfortunately ruled out for the Cincinnati game with a rib injury, and Jeff Sims was named starter of the week for the week. So that kind of was the turbulent water that ASU was going into for this week at Cincinnati, which, did you guys get a chance to watch the game? It was an early game, I will say.
Unfortunately, it was blacked out. Normally, I'm able to
really?
Normally, I'm able to watch everything. My one shoe fits all streaming service was blacked out here in Arizona of all places. So I ended up actually listening to the Blaze broadcast. So shout out Blaze Radio. They put together a really cool broadcast. And yeah, so I listened in and just, I think my one takeaway from the loss is look at that second half.
Yeah, for sure.
How many points did Cincinnati score? 0. Our defense was putting up stop after stop after stop, and I think just the disconnect without Levitt, when you don't have your quarterback, there's such a gap. And just for them to, the defense to really take that step up and say, hey, you know what, it's a bad day, but we're going to keep that bad day from getting worse, I think was really impressive. And I think a lot of people haven't given the defense as much flowers as they deserve.
Oh, for sure. And you can see that especially with big defensive plays coming out, like in our linebacker that was named Defensive Player of the Week. So.
Yeah, definitely. Just like what you guys have been saying, I feel like it definitely could have been worse. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's definitely got blown up because of the comments by Dillingham after the game. Yeah. But I definitely feel like it was sort of, we got in this groove with our last few games. And, once you have that vital piece of your team missing, it's easy to get out of that groove offensively, as we saw in that last game. And so, yeah, it could have been worse, on the other side of things. But I definitely think the comments by Coach Dillingham after the game made things a little, exploded things a little bit.
So an area of concern that has been brought up into fans' attention as of late is the team's quote-unquote issues with kicking after Ian Hershey missed 2 field goals in that Cincinnati game, where Coach Kenny Dillingham came out and said after in a press conference, quote, "Our kicking game is atrocious. So if you can kick and you are at Arizona State, email me. We're going to have kicking tryouts on Monday, so bring it on," end quote. Coach Dillingham received a lot of backlash on social media and has since apologized on X for a statement after the game. But I don't know how y'all feel about that. It was very interesting for me, at least, to see that he actually came out and said those things. And that can definitely tank the morale of the team.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it was different from what we've seen him, like how we've seen him speak recently in his press conferences or like during the game when they're speaking to him. Like, it just seemed overall, obviously there's frustration with that game. Sure. It was a very frustrating game. But to come out and sort of blame it, you could have said our offense, our defense, and that sort of groups like people together. But that statement specifically is sort of blaming this loss to Cincinnati on our one person. Yeah. And so it kind of comes off on a blame game when I feel it's not just one person to blame. It's
accountability.
It's the whole team. Even when offense does better than defense does better than offense, you're still one team, and you can't especially blame it on one person in a game like football.
Yeah, for sure.
I could not agree with you more. The one thing I will say is it is a problem that needs to be addressed as far as our kicking goals. I just pull up one stat here. 7 of 12 field goals. That's only 58%. That's not going to fly. If you want to have a team that is dynamic, a team that is able to score, but a team that needs to be able to come into clutch. You look at, all of these major games that come down to 2, 3, 1 point, and a field goal could come down between you and,
a couple yards.
Just, hey, I don't know if you guys checked out the BYU-Oklahoma game from Friday, but I was watching it with a couple of friends, and it came down to a field goal and a few minutes left on the clock. And so I'm curious to see what happens out of this situation. Obviously wishing Ian Hershey the best, and hopefully, this is just something where he can kind of shut out the noise, take the next steps with his journey. But I think as far as ASU football, it is a problem that needs a fix. Yeah, and just taking that as a way to grow. Yes, that was not the greatest way to go about it, but it should reignite something, I feel, for this kicking tandem that we've had. And also the 2 missed field goals were from just over 40 yards, which is kind of where most field goals are going for. So like you said, it's definitely an issue, needs to be addressed, and hopefully they get to the bottom of it somehow, whether that is trying out a new kicker or continuing with the same tandem. The Sun Devils are on a bye week this week and will return on November 2nd with another Big 12 showdown at Oklahoma State, for the remainder of their schedule being conference matchups. So next up, we have our ASU Athlete of the Week, Judy Chepkowicz, I believe. Nailed it.
Take it away.
That was a tricky name. I definitely botched it the first show. So again, apologies for that. But yeah, she has just been on a tear. I think you have to just give her the award for most impressive ASU athlete as an individual, because in just 3 races in the Sun Devil jersey, freshman Judy Chepkowicz has put together one of the most decorated seasons of all time. She's run 3 meets here, one 2.5-mile race at the George Kite Classic, and then a pair of 6Ks, UC Riverside Invite and the Arto Barrios Invite. And guess what? A time of 19 minutes and 7 seconds this weekend was the fastest 6K in school history in only her 3rd race ever. The team placed 25th overall. They'll turn their attention to the Big 12 championships. But how about the cross-country team making some noise?
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like smaller sports like this, and especially the more individual sports, are kind of harder to follow. But especially, I know we've talked about her a few times on the show, and it's just amazing to see that we've been talking about her, and she's still continuing to break records. I mean, what you said earlier, the fastest 6K in school history, 5 minutes and 7 seconds per mile. Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
That is insane. And the fact that she's just now starting, and she's already making these moves now, it makes you excited to see her future.
I mean, yeah, it's just so cool that we're able to check back in on these athletes that we've covered before. I think we covered her week 1 of our show, and now seeing her progress throughout our time here, it's just awesome to see her consistently putting up these numbers, these record-breaking numbers, these super impressive run times. I could never in a million years think about running a 5-minute mile myself. That's some, in my head, superhuman abilities. So it's just awesome to be able to see that come out of our very own.
And so, yeah, that was going to, again, just 3rd place, want to reiterate. So it was her first loss of the season, but against the competition that they had, to race 3rd, to finish 3rd is so impressive. They'll move on to the Big 12 championships. That'll be held November 1st in Waco, Texas. It'll set up for the NCAA Western Regionals, which are taking place in Washington last year. I actually went to the Western Regionals last year. They were held in Sacramento, so just kind of right on my home turf. So, Chepkowicz has a legit shot to advance to the Big 12 and then potentially make a big run toward her first ever NCAA appearance. So we wish her the best.
Next up for our ASU game, or games, I should say, is ASU hockey versus Michigan in their 2-game opening series here back at home. Specifically, Game 2, ASU had their first homestand 2 weekends ago, opening in a thrilling doubleheader shared with ASU football versus Utah. They were playing ranked number 10 University of Michigan hockey. And if you know anything about University of Michigan hockey, is you know that they are a powerhouse to deal with when you play them. Unfortunately, their first game, ASU fell 1-4 to the Wolverines on Friday, with the lone power play goal scored by Ty Jackson, assisted by his twin brother Dylan Jackson, and defenseman Noah Beck. Luckily, the Sun Devils were able to bounce back on Saturday night with not a win, but a shootout tie and a 3-3 tie. And college hockey is a little bit different when it comes to that. Usually you think of shootouts, it's whoever wins the shootout wins. There's no overtime wins or losses in college hockey. So when they go for a shootout, they're playing for a point in the standings. So ASU was able to come out with that point on Saturday night. They had 3 different goal scorers to get on the board during this matchup: Dylan Jackson, Michael Hage, and Colin Potter. And a standout player for this game was Colin Potter, the 17-year-old freshman out of the United States National Team Development Program from the hockey state of Minnesota. Not only scored the game-tying goal in regulation, but he also scored the first shootout goal for ASU on their first attempt, and Michigan just wasn't able to answer. So yeah, I know not big hockey fans in the room besides me, but like Mullet was absolutely rocking, and I think just goes to speak for the environment that ASU has built for college hockey, for hockey in the desert.
Yeah, definitely. I know that Friday, even though hockey, they did lose, it was a big deal to have that double header with football and hockey, and it was a big deal in Tempe on Friday night. And it sounds like I don't know much about hockey, but I do also know that Michigan is a powerhouse and is one of those Michigan is to hockey as is Nebraska is to volleyball. It's one of those big powerhouse schools that everybody knows about. So the fact that we were able to put up a big, contender, and I know that the games were packed and were sold out. I know that they were giving out stuff and people were excited to go. So I think that's a great start and a great reminder that hockey does have a place in the desert.
And anytime you have a shootout, just that energy, that excitement. When I heard, we're in a shootout with Michigan, I kind of was like, Michigan's, they've got the depth, they've got the knowledge, they've been here, done that. But ASU came out on top. So that's, another win for the Devils. Exciting to see, and just, again, showing, like you said, hockey in the desert.
Yeah.
We're back.
And I think that also goes to show that when you take away, ASU Arena was shared with an NHL team. I was trying to get tickets to this game on Saturday because they were sold out for the student section, and I could not. It was just an electric atmosphere to be in, awesome atmosphere, and maybe a little bit disappointing, but like almost all of our sports, they are in a new conference, and they faced 2. We'll get into this for a second. They also had a 2-game series last weekend against Providence, who was also a ranked opponent. They did fall to them as well, putting up a stronger performance in the second game on Saturday. But it just there's the environment here for it, and they belong. And it's gonna be a tough season, but I think they'll be able to pull out in the end with their new opponents and ranked opponents that they've never met before. So, moving on here, we have our Arizona high school prospect, Seth Crow.
Yeah, a sport that is a much-needed break from the heat here in Arizona. Thankfully, we got that this weekend. Yes. We got Chaparral senior Seth Crow. He's one of Arizona's top swimmers and was actually just named as one of Arizona Central's Athlete of the Week candidates at the Paul Thornburg Scottsdale Unified School District Championship. Try saying that 3 times fast. Crow won the 50 free with 19.99 seconds, as well as the 100 free with a time of 45.045 seconds, setting a new state lead in both events. And he also placed first in the 200 melody and 200 free relay teams, extending his record of, 11 first-place finishes this season. That is really incredible. And as far as the national ranking goes, he's the 25th best swimmer in the United States, and according to Swim Cloud rankings, his high school career has earned 662.7 points, only 30 outside of the top 10 in the nation. This guy seems really accomplished, and I'm surprised we didn't stumble upon him sooner.
I know. Especially we love to talk about swimmers here, I feel.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about swimmers before, and I do know that some of the top, obviously, it's a great place to be a swimmer and train to be a swimmer and, aspire to be a college swimmer here in Arizona. And I do know that in some of the rankings, Chaparral specifically, they're a big athlete school. They're in my high school's district. I'm pretty sure they're top on, I think out of the top 10, 3 or 4 are from Chaparral High School. So it's very interesting to see the competition, I bet, that's fostered within having several of the top 10 swimmers at your school.
For sure. And I mean, yeah, like I said, we love to cover swimmers. And I personally don't know a ton about swimming, but being at Arizona State, I feel like is a big undercover swimming school. They have a lot of top swimming athletes, so I'll definitely have to get into it more. But like just looking at this from an outsider perspective, like 11 first place finishes this season already. I mean, and the season, correct me if I'm wrong, but the swimming season is pretty long, right?
I believe for high school, it's just the fall.
Okay. So, I mean, he's on a great pace to finish with a great record. Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say other than this is, like, amazing to look at on paper, seeing the stats he's able to put up.
Well, I think the really curious thing is my research that I did, I couldn't find a college that he's committed to thus far.
Interesting.
Which, to be uncommitted this late in the game when your senior year and you're 25th in the nation, you know, I feel like sometimes that can be really scary for high school athletes who are trying to go D1 because you want to lock that up as soon as possible. But on the flip side of that, you also give yourself the opportunity to, you know, make these improvements during your senior year and make yourself even more of a touted prospect. And so really curious to see where he lands. And, you know, I'm excited to see how swim goes this season for both ASU as well as the high school level.
Yeah. I mean, he'd be on my my radar if I was a college recruit for 25th in the nation.
I know previously one of our Chaparral athletes that's a swimmer is committed to ASU, so we'll see where he ends up, and maybe he'll end up here.
Yes. Okay, last but not least this week, we have our ASU Sport Topic Choice with the Triathlon Team World Competition. What do we have about that?
So I fell sort of down a bit of a rabbit hole when I was looking into the triathlon team because they're currently competing in Spain at a world championship, and I found out that our triathlon team is amazing. We have won 7 consecutive NCAA titles, and our program has only been at ASU. We've only had a triathlon team here since 2016. It's actually the 9-year anniversary today or this month. They posted it on their social media. And preseason, they were ranked number 1. And this Sun Devil triathlon team, it's just all over an amazing team, and it's recognized as an amazing team. And I have never thought to think that we have a triathlon team. I thought that was only like an Olympic thing. I don't know. I just never realized the fact that we had a triathlon team.
I didn't either until I saw the doc that we're looking at currently, and I was like, oh, triathlon, like ASU, like Arizona State University has a triathlon team.
Really? You
I
guys
had
had
no
no idea?
idea.
I had never realized this, and now I was looking it up, and I just went down this rabbit hole, and I was like, oh my gosh, like we've won 7 consecutive NCAA titles, and we're just out of 9 years, there's only 2 years
That's
that they
insane.
haven't won a champion or a title, and even their coach too, Cliff English, is a 4-time Olympic coach, and he's amazing all the way around. And I was just like mind blown, and I just kept going down this rabbit hole when I started at this one event that I wanted to cover for our group choice. But I had no clue we had a triathlon team.
Well, I'll get you further down that rabbit hole because there's actually a really well-known Cronkite student who actually competed for the triathlon team. His name is Andrew Kerlin. I follow him only because he's actually now in the NASCAR industry. Okay. So I'm kind of trying to model that path. And so, you know, that's how I stumbled upon the triathlon team and getting to see what he did. And I know he still competes in triathlons today. And so it's just so cool to see that there's even people who have been here in Cronkite who have ties to the triathlon team. But like you said, you know, the triathlon is something that I find really, really cool because I like biking. I like running. Mm-hmm. I could be hit or miss on the swimming, but it's definitely something that I for sure want to do. At some point in my life, I want to do a triathlon.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, you have to master 3 very difficult things. I mean, it's for the NCAA triathlon is a 750-meter swim, 20-kilometer cycling, and 5K. And in that order. And I can't even imagine just doing, I struggled doing a 5K. So
Literally.
I can't even imagine doing all of these things and going from starting in the water and then having to get out and ride a bike and then having to go from that to running. It's just amazing. And ASU happens to be one of the best at it.
Really good at it.
Who knew? But currently, we have 8 triathlon athletes in the country that are racing for world titles. 3 of those are Sun Devils. So they're competing in Spain at the 2024 U23 World Championships, and U23 is basically athletes under 23. And Faith Dazo and Naomi Ruff raced for Arizona State University. This happened this past week. And then they also raced with former Sun Devil Liberty Rika, and she was part of the 2022 NCAA team. And 3 more Sun Devils, Brittany Brown, Zoe Adam, and Sydney Clement, also competed in the Junior Worlds Championship 3 days ago. So out of 8 triathlon athletes in the country, 3 had associations to Arizona State University in this championship, which is just amazing.
Yeah, like you said, I would have never thought that Arizona State would have had a triathlon team. And it's like, I feel like you think of endurance racing and you think of triathlon and then like Le Mans or something like that. So it's like really, and endurance racing is just a whole nother beast in itself. But yeah, it's really awesome to see that. There's so many different kinds of athletes that come out of Arizona State.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's a form of art. So it's super cool that we stumbled upon it, and, can't wait to follow them now throughout the rest of the season.
Definitely.
All right. Everyone, any final thoughts for today? All right. Thank you so much for listening to Monday's edition of Onward to Victory. My name is Jordan Talley, alongside
Ella Wolter-Sánchez.
And Noah Reed.
Thank you for listening on Blaze Radio and Blaze Radio Online. See you next time.